welcome back to my channel. My name is Shelby and today I'm going to be doing a 2-week reading wrap-up from August 26th until today, September 8th. So starting September 15, I'm going to be doing my wrap-ups a little bit differently since September 15 is a Sunday and it'll cut the month right in half. From then on out, I'm just going to be doing 2 wrap-ups a month, part 1 and part 2, instead of my weekly wrap-ups, because that'll leave me more space to do different type of content on my channel, maybe some more vlogs, and then I only have to film 2 wrap-ups a month versus like 4 or more. So my next week's wrap-up will be my last weekly wrap-up. I'm really sorry if you really enjoy those, but just for me and my schedule, it just works better to do 2 wrap-ups a month, so I hope you guys don't mind. I did read a lot of ebooks since I was out of town for about 8 days, and I didn't have my physical books with me, so I'm still really pleased that I was able to read a lot of books while I was out of town. So I'll leave all these books linked down below, and let's get right into it. The first book that I read is Fourth and Girl by Max Monroe, and this is the 4th and final book in the Mavericks Tackle Love series. This follows a rookie on the Mavericks team called Leo Landry. He's kind of just starting out with this team and trying to make his place. And one day he's doing a drug test and he runs into this really beautiful woman when he gives her his sample, and they have this fumble and they basically spill his sample everywhere, but he's super captivated by her and she's really beautiful. But then when he comes back another day to redo the sample, she is gone and he thinks he'll never see her again. And that girl happens to be Gemma, and she's in her 20s. She dropped out of college and she's kind of trying to find herself and hasn't found a job that she loves. And she did get let go from the job of collecting pee samples because she messed up. And so she gets another job with this older lady doing internet sales out of her house. And this older lady is dying for her to meet her nephew and sets her up on this little date for a lunch. And it happens to be that the nephew is Leo Landry. Basically, Leo and Gemma are brought back into each other's lives and it seems like fate, and it's a romance between them, and this was really cute. There wasn't a whole lot of drama in it. It was a little on the short side at about 250 pages, but I still really enjoyed it. It wasn't my favorite of the series, but I still ended up giving it 3.5 stars. The next book that I read is Boyfriend for Hire by Kendall Ryan, and this is the first book in the Escorts Inc. series. And this follows an escort named Nick Evans, and he's been a male escort for about 6 years, and he gets randomly hired to do a very interesting job. This bride hires him to be a date for her best friend to her wedding, but the bride does not want her friend Elle to know that Nick is an escort. She wants him to pretend to be a college friend of hers, so that way Elle doesn't think that she's being set up with an escort, but she still has a date, because Elle's ex is actually going to be one of the groomsmen in the wedding, and it's going to be really awkward to see each other. So basically it's them going to this wedding together, and of course a romance sparks, but it's complicated because she thinks that Nick works in finance, but really he is a male escort, and Nick doesn't really think that Elle will date him if she knows what his real profession is, and so they continue to date, but of course he's keeping this secret. Their romance was really cute. I really liked them together. I did think that Elle kind of got over his lies and secrets a little too easily, but I still enjoyed it. There's something about Kendall Ryan's books where I gobble them up and I love them, but I never give them 5 stars. I just don't have that emotional connection that makes me want to give it a 5 stars. But they're always still really enjoyable, so I gave this one 4 stars. The next book that I read is Hold You Close by Corinne Michaels and Melanie Harlow. And earlier this year, I read another book by this author duo and loved it, so I was really excited to pick this up, especially after reading the premise. This is a second chance romance between London and Ian, who had a romance back in high school, but then basically Ian broke her heart, and ever since they've really hated each other, but they've been forced to be in each other's lives because Ian's sister is London's best friend. And then over a decade after these two break up, Ian's sister and her husband die in an accident, and they leave 3 kids orphaned, and in their will they had Ian take care of these kids, but he has no idea how to take care of kids. He owns a club and he has no idea how to be paternal, and so he basically begs for London to help him, and it's their romance, them parenting these kids together and them rekindling their romance. And I wish this one worked more for me because the premise I absolutely loved, but their romance kind of rekindled a little too quick without enough resolution between them, and I didn't feel like we got to know their relationship from high school very much either, so I ended up giving this one 3 stars, but I still really like this writing duo and I can't wait to read more by them. The next book that I read is I Can Be a Better You by Taryn Fisher. I was so excited to read this because Jacqueline over at Weeby Bookin', she loved this book. I will link her down below, and thank you so much for the recommendation. This is about a woman named Fig who starts stalking this married couple named Darius and Jolene, and she actually buys the house right next door to them. She basically wiggles herself into their lives, becomes their friend, is always there helping take care of their daughter, and she's been stalking them for months. So it's pretty creepy. She's kind of crazy, and we think that this married couple, they're kind of perfect. They seem to have it all, But then we see perspective shift from Fig. We go from Fig to Darius and then to his wife Jolene, and everyone has some serious problems, and everyone's version of events is a little bit different from what transpires. And you're kind of wondering who you can trust and what is the truth. And this one was wild. The ending was really good. It was super addicting and page turning. I would highly recommend it. I gave it 4 stars. The next book that I read is Taken to the Grave by M.M. Chenard. This is the second book in the Jo Fournier series. And I got this one off of NetGalley, and it comes out this month, September 19th. And earlier this year, I read the first book in the series and I really enjoyed it. I really liked this detective, Jo Fournier, but unfortunately, this one I didn't love quite as much. It follows the same detective, and she's basically called on a case when a professor is found murdered in his office. And once they start asking around about this professor, they realize he definitely was not well liked. There were sexual assault allegations against him. There were student allegations against him. Definitely there was a lot of people that wanted him dead. And then a lot of other people that knew him start showing up mysteriously dead, and so they're kind of looking for who could have committed these murders. And we're basically following Jo Fournier and her partner. This one to me I didn't love. I didn't love all the twists. I didn't like how it was executed, and the writing for me was just a little bit boring. I was so disappointed because I loved the first book and I thought it was so well written, but something about this I just couldn't connect to. It wasn't a bad book by any means, but I ended up giving it 3 stars. The next book that I read is Mouth to Mouth by Tessa Bailey. This is the first book in the Beach Kingdom series, and this is a more novella length that's about 150 pages. And if you know anything about Tessa Bailey, you know she writes really steamy books, and this is no exception. This is about a bad boy named Rory Prince. He is an ex-con, and he runs a bar with his 2 brothers on a beach town. And one day he's on the street and he sees a beautiful blonde who almost gets run over by a bus, and he ends up saving her. And he's basically smitten with her since the second he meets her. And her name is Olive, and she's 18, and she just moved to the town after leaving home from her parents. And Rory feels like Olive is definitely too good for him, but he can't resist himself, and they start up this romance. And this one to me was okay. I thought the steamy scenes were good, but I didn't like the virgin trope. So Olive was a virgin, and I'm just not a huge fan of that trope where the male character really idolizes the woman because she's a virgin. And there was something about their romance I just didn't love. I thought it was way too insta-love. And for 150 pages, yes, you expect them to fall in love pretty quickly, but it just wasn't that believable for me. But I still did enjoy this one, and I'm curious about the rest of the series, so I gave this one 3 stars. The next book that I read is Here to Stay by Mark Edwards. I really enjoyed this book. I got it off of Amazon First Reads a month or 2 ago, and I just randomly picked it up off of my Kindle, and I'm so glad that I did. And this is a domestic thriller about a recently married couple named Gemma and Elliot, and they married each other after knowing each other only 2 months, and Gemma moves into Elliot's really nice house, and they are newlyweds, and all of a sudden she gets a call from her parents saying they are moving from France back to England and they really need a place to stay. So Gemma and Elliot graciously open up their homes to Gemma's parents as well as her sister, and they move in, and soon you realize that they are the in-laws and the family from hell, and they really make it hard for Gemma and Elliot. But Gemma refuses to kick them out because she does seem a little scared of them. And we kind of follow this path of Elliot having these nightmare guests and them refusing to leave. We're following these crazy turn of events, and you know that things cannot end well, and they do not. And I just really could not put this one down. It was really addicting, it was well written, and I really want to read more by this author because this one was so good. I gave it 4 stars. The next book that I read is The Poison Garden by A.J. Banner. I got this one through NetGalley, and it comes out October 22nd. I previously read The Twilight Wife by A.J. Banner, and I really liked it, and this one actually takes place in a really similar setting. It takes place on a remote island off the coast of Seattle. It follows Elise and her new husband. They moved into her mother's house after she passed, and they're living on this island. And the day before their 1-year anniversary, Elise comes into their home and she discovers her husband cheating on her, so she basically kicks him out. And then she also realizes that her ex-husband also has been visiting the island a lot and kind of conveniently popping up into her life, so she feels like both the men in her life are not really trustworthy at all. And she has these bouts of amnesia spells where she wakes up and she doesn't remember doing some pretty intense things, and she kind of doesn't know if she can trust herself, and you're wondering yourself if you can trust her and if you can trust these 2 men in her life. I don't want to say much more about the plot from there because it's only 200 pages, so it's a rather short thriller. And I think this one could have benefited from another 50 to 100 pages because towards the end, a lot of things were happening and they were crazy. And I really wanted to see them fleshed out a little bit more. And this one I did not like quite as much as The Twilight Wife. Something about it just didn't work for me, so I ended up giving it 3 stars. The next book that I read I was so excited for, and that is Say You Still Love Me by K.A. Tucker. This one came out in August, and it is a second chance romance. We're following our main character named Piper, 2 different timelines. We're following her when she was 16 and she went to summer camp to be a counselor, and then currently where she's working at her father's big business, and I think it's like 13 years after she went to summer camp. And back when she was 16, she was a summer camp counselor. She was pretty privileged and she didn't want to be a counselor. She thought she was too good for it, but she ended up having a really good time. And when she went to this camp, she made some friends and she met this guy named Kyle, and she instantly became smitten with him, and we're following their love story, and we know that they break up after summer ends and he basically breaks her heart. And currently Piper is really successful. She's become VP of her dad's company, and she discovers that Kyle is the new security guard for her building, and it is their second chance romance. And I really liked the part about them at camp, but something about their current romance I just didn't love. I didn't feel as connected to this as I wanted to, and I don't know, it just kind of bored me and I didn't love it. It was nothing like The Simple Wild. That one hits it out of the park for me, and this one just felt really flat, so I ended up giving it 3 stars. The next book that I read is The Hardest Fall by Ella Mays, and this one is a college sports romance, and I really enjoyed this one, and I had been putting it off forever because it's about 400 pages, but it was actually a really quick read, and I'm so happy I picked it up. This is about 2 college students named Dylan and Zoe who keep running into each other in really funny ways over a couple of years. Dylan is on the football team and he has his sights for the NFL, and he discovers that his girlfriend has been cheating on him, and so he moves out of the house he's been living in because his girlfriend cheated on him with his teammates, and he needs a place to stay, so his coach offers him a room in an apartment that he has. And when he moves in, he discovers his new roommate is none other than Zoe, who is also living there. So they're forced to live together. They knew that they had these awkward run-ins for years, and now they're roommates. And they become friends, but of course feelings get involved. But Zoe has a secret she's been keeping, and it definitely could tear their relationship apart. And so we're following them together, and I thought it was really good. I thought they were both mature individuals. I thought even though they were college students, they didn't act too above or below their age. I just thought it was a really good romance. I ended up giving it 4 stars. The next book that I read is Good Boy by Elle Kennedy and Serena Bowen, and this is the first book in the WAG series, which is a spin-off series of the Him and Us duet. And we're following 2 characters that we see in the Him and Us duet, and I love companion series like this, so I was so excited for this couple's romance. And it's about Blake, who is the best friend and teammate of Wesley from the Him and Us duet, and Jess, who is the sister of Jamie, who is Wesley's husband. And Jess is planning the wedding for Wesley and Jamie, and she's a little nervous about it because the best man happens to be Blake, who she hooked up with months earlier, and she really doesn't want to see him again, but she's super attracted to him, and they have a little hookup at the wedding, but they part ways. She lives in California, he lives in Toronto and plays hockey there, so she doesn't think she'll see him very often. But Jess decides she wants to be a nurse, and it's definitely cheaper to go to school in Canada than it is in California, so she actually moves to Toronto and goes to nursing school there. And of course she runs into Blake, and it is their romance, and I loved this. Blake was such a funny character. He's a goofball and the total bro, but he has a heart of gold, and I thought our heroine Jess was super relatable. In the beginning of the novel, she doesn't really know what she wants to do. She feels really unsure of herself, and by the end of the story she finds herself and learns to love herself more and be more self-confident, and I just loved their romance together. It is a lot of fun, and I gave this one 5 stars. The next book that I read is One Night Gone by Tara Laskowski, and this one I got off of NetGalley, and it comes out October 1st. I did a buddy read of this with Kendra over at Kendra Loves Books. I will link her down below. You guys should definitely check her out. And this is a mystery thriller that follows 2 different timelines, which I absolutely love that kind of trope in a thriller. And it follows 1985 about a girl named Maureen who is there in this coastal town for a summer. And while she's there for the summer, she makes friends with a girl named Tammy, and she starts a relationship with a guy named Clay. But we know by the end of the summer, she disappears. And then we're following 30 years later, a woman named Allison in 2015. She's divorced, she's lost her job, and she basically needs a reprieve from her life. So she moves to this coastal town, and it's the same coastal town where Maureen went missing. And someone in the town named Tammy, who works at a local coffee shop, who was Maureen's best friend back in the day, she thinks that Allison Allison looks just like Maureen, and Allison feels compelled to kind of help Tammy figure out what happened to her best friend 30 years earlier. And Allison starts to investigate what happened to Maureen, and we start putting the pieces together. This was a super slow book for me, unfortunately. I did like the mystery, but I didn't really love the ending. I thought it could have been executed better, so I ended up giving this one 3 stars. The last book that I read is Things You Save in a Fire by Catherine Center, and this one I received from St. Martin's Press, so I was really excited to get to it. I've heard nothing but great things, and I absolutely loved this one. This is about our main heroine named Cassie. She lives in Austin, Texas, and she is a female firefighter. She loves her career, and she has no time for romance, and out of the blue she gets a call from her estranged mother who lives in Massachusetts, and her mother asks her to move in with her for a year to help her with some health issues. But Cassie is really hesitant and she doesn't want to because she doesn't have a close relationship with her mom. So at first she says no, but then she gets herself in this situation at work and she's basically forced to leave. So she changes her mind and moves to Massachusetts and gets a job there at a local firehouse. But the firehouse in Massachusetts is way different than the one in Austin. It's way less accepting of females in that industry. And so she really has to prove herself and she has a really hard time there at the firehouse. And she meets this rookie who starts the same day as her named Owen, and they start this friendship and she's really attracted to him. So there is a romance element between Cassie and Owen, and it's a story about her and her mother fixing their relationship and her having forgiveness for her mother for the transgressions that she has basically from when she was 16. It's also about the romance between her and Owen, as well as her finding her place in this male-dominated workplace. And this one I thought was so good, and the message I loved. There were aspects of it I didn't love, so I had to dock it half a star, but I still would highly recommend it. I gave it 4.5 stars. So those are all the books that I ended up reading in the last couple of weeks. Let me know if you've read any of them and if you liked them. I will link them all down below, and I will see you guys on my next one. Bye.